His name was Mr. Raymond Daniels, but everyone called him Baba Ray because he looked like an old poor man. His face always had a little dust, his hands were rough from cleaning toilets, and his clothes smelled of bleach. Nobody respected him. But behind the mop and bucket, Baba Ray was the owner of that very supermarket chain. He had houses in 3 countries. He had cars that no one in the company had ever seen. But Raymond was tired of fake smiles, tired of gold diggers who only loved his money, tired of being lonely in his mansion. So one morning he shaved his beard roughly, put on torn slippers, and told his driver to drop him at the supermarket gate. That was the day the cleaner was born. Nobody recognized him. Not even the manager who once bowed to greet him during meetings. Now, the same manager shouted at him, "Old man, mop faster. You're not being paid to stand around." Raymond would smile, bend down, and clean like his life depended on it. For weeks, he worked hard. People walked past him. Some looked at him with pity, some with disgust. Except for one person. Her name was Halima. She worked at the cashier section. She had a soft smile, kind eyes, and always packed her leftover food and gave it to him without asking. "Baba Ray, have you eaten today?" she would ask every afternoon. He would smile shyly and say, "Not yet, my daughter." She never judged him, never laughed at his clothes. When he had a small cut on his hand, she brought salt water and treated it like a nurse. One evening, when it rained heavily and his torn slippers broke, she removed her own sandals and gave them to him. He looked at her feet, wet and cold, and his heart broke. "Why would you do this for a poor old man like me?" he asked with tears in his eyes. She only smiled and said, "Kindness doesn't need a reason." From that day, Raymond knew. She was different. She didn't care about money. She cared about people. Days turned into weeks, and Baba Ray started telling Halima stories. Funny stories about rich men and secret mansions, pretending they were made up. She would laugh and say, "That's like a fairy tale, Baba Ray. Men like that don't exist." He would nod and say, "Maybe they do, but they're hiding in plain sight." One afternoon, he saw her crying behind the store. Her mother was sick. The hospital demanded a huge amount. She was helpless. "I've tried everything," she sobbed, "but I don't have the kind of money they're asking for." Raymond felt pain in his chest. He wanted to write a check. He wanted to say, "I can fix this," but he had to be sure that her love wasn't for the money. So he quietly found the hospital and paid for everything, using a fake name. When Halima found out someone had cleared her mother's bills, she knelt down and prayed, tears running down her face. "God bless whoever did this," she whispered. "Please bless them more than I can imagine." That night, Raymond couldn't sleep. The way she prayed, not for herself, but for a stranger, it touched his heart like never before. The next morning, he brought a small gift, a secondhand necklace he picked from a roadside seller. "It's not much," he said, handing it to her with shaking hands, "but I thought of you." She hugged him tightly. "It's beautiful, Baba Ray. Thank you." Weeks later, something happened. A man in a black suit came to the supermarket, looking for Baba Ray. The manager, angry and confused, said, "There's no Baba Ray here, only the old cleaner." But the man in the suit replied, "That is Mr. Raymond Daniels, the owner of this company." Everyone was frozen. Halima dropped the pen in her hand. Her heart raced. She turned slowly to look at Baba Ray, who was now standing tall, wiping his glasses slowly. His voice changed. It was deeper, firmer. "I was testing the hearts of people," he said calmly, "and now I know who truly sees me, not what I have." Halima stared at him, confused, her lips slightly open. "Wait, Baba Ray, you're the billionaire?" Raymond stepped closer, looking into her eyes. "I'm the man who found love in a woman's kindness," he said softly. "But now I need to know something else." He paused. The entire supermarket was dead silent. Even the beeping scanner stopped working. Raymond continued, "If I told you I'm not poor, would you still talk to me the same way?" And before she could answer, a loud voice interrupted them from the entrance. A woman wearing high heels, a golden watch, and bright red lipstick stormed in. "There you are, Ray," she shouted. "You disappeared for 2 months and shut off all your accounts. What kind of game is this?" Halima turned to her, shocked. "Who is she?" Raymond looked at the woman and back at Halima, struggling to find words. And just like that, the truth was hanging in the air. Was she his fiancée? Was she his past? Halima stepped back slowly, her eyes full of questions. Raymond opened his mouth to speak. The golden-lipped woman stood at the entrance like a queen who had lost her crown. Her high heels clapped loudly on the supermarket tiles as she marched towards Raymond. All eyes were on her. Customers paused. Staff stopped what they were doing. Even the security guard didn't know whether to open the door wider or chase her out. Halima stood still, confused and unsure whether to walk away or wait for an explanation. "Raymond Daniels," the woman snapped. "I've been calling your phone, messaging your assistant, even checking your estate. Then I find out you've been here, pretending to be a cleaner? What kind of sick joke is this?" Raymond didn't flinch, but inside he was nervous. Not because of the woman's anger, but because Halima now had questions. Questions he wasn't ready to answer. He looked at Halima and said gently, "Please, let me explain." The woman turned to Halima with narrowed eyes. "Oh, this is the reason you vanished? A cashier girl?" Halima's eyes widened. She felt like the ground could open and swallow her. People were already whispering. Some coworkers who once ignored her were suddenly pretending to be her best friends. Others just stared, waiting for drama. Raymond raised his hand. "Enough, Amanda." Halima blinked. "Amanda. So that was her name." Raymond continued. "Amanda, we ended things a year ago. You cared more about my bank account than me. I told you I wanted something real." Amanda laughed bitterly. "So you chose to crawl on floors and clean toilets like a madman? You threw away power and luxury. For this?" She pointed at Halima as if she were nothing more than a dustbin. Raymond's voice was calm, but firm. "Don't speak about her like that." Halima looked down. Her hands were shaking. Her heart beat so fast she could barely breathe. All this time, she thought Baba Ray was just a kind old cleaner with hidden wisdom. Now she was standing between two worlds, one full of cameras, cars, and money, and another full of simple love, quiet talks, and shared meals behind the store. Amanda hissed, "I'm not going to waste my time on this nonsense. I came to bring you back to the boardroom. The shareholders are restless. They want the real CEO, not some janitor." She tossed her hair and turned sharply. The clack of her heels echoed as she stormed out. Silence followed, long, painful silence. Raymond turned slowly toward Halima. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to be dragged into all this." Halima didn't say a word. She was breathing hard. Her eyes were glassy, holding back tears. "So it's true," she whispered. "You lied." "I didn't lie," he said softly. "I hid. I needed to know if love without money still existed." She looked at him with pain in her eyes. "And you used me to find out?" "No," he replied quickly. "I found you, and you changed me." She didn't know what to say. She needed space. She walked away, wiping her eyes. Raymond didn't follow. He just watched her go. The next week at work was strange. Everyone greeted Halima differently now. The same manager who ignored her now brought her tea and smiled too much. Some coworkers called her Madam Billionaire's girlfriend behind her back. Others tried to befriend her suddenly. But Halima wasn't happy. She didn't want all this attention. She missed the quiet times she shared with Baba Ray, the man who listened, who laughed at her jokes, who cared when she was tired. Raymond didn't come to the supermarket that week. His driver sent a letter to her, but she didn't open it. She kept it under her pillow for days, too scared of what it might say. Then, one Friday evening, she went to check on her mother at the hospital. "Your husband paid for extra tests," the nurse said cheerfully. Halima paused. "My husband?" The nurse smiled. "Oh, sorry. I meant the man who paid your mother's bills. He upgraded her room. She's much better now." Halima stepped into her mother's room. The old woman was smiling, resting comfortably. "Halima," she whispered, "who is that kind man? He didn't even want his name mentioned. He just prayed for me and left." Halima sat beside her mother, holding her hand. "Mama, I don't know anymore. I really don't." Her mother gave her a knowing look. "Sometimes we miss the answer because we're too busy asking the wrong question. Don't ask why he hid. Ask what he found when he met you." The next day, Halima made a decision. She opened the letter. "Dear Halima, I never planned to stay long as Baba Ray, but when I met you, I found peace I've never known before. If I told you I was a billionaire from the start, would you have ever looked at me the way you did? I don't think so. And that's why I stayed. You made me feel seen, not for my money, but for my heart. If you never want to see me again, I will understand. But if your heart still has space for an old cleaner with a new face, I'll be waiting at our spot behind the store, 5 p.m. on Sunday." She read it twice. Then again. Sunday came. Halima wore her simplest dress, the same one she wore the day they first spoke. She went behind the store at 5 p.m. No one was there. Her heart sank. She waited. 5:10. Still nothing. 5:20. Tears filled her eyes. Then at 5:29 she heard soft footsteps. He was wearing the same faded slippers, holding a mop stick, but this time he had a rose in one hand and a shy smile on his face. "I got caught up giving instructions at the office," he said gently. "Old habits." She didn't speak. He handed her the rose. "I know I made a mess, but maybe we can clean it up together." She looked at him, and for the first time in days she smiled. But just as she opened her mouth to reply, a loud crash echoed from the main road. Someone screamed. People ran. Halima and Raymond turned quickly and rushed toward the noise. A black SUV had hit a small Keka tricycle, and it was flipped sideways. Raymond's face turned white. His driver was in that SUV, and someone from the back seat was stepping out. It was Amanda, her face bleeding, clutching a handbag and pointing directly at Halima. You have no idea what you've started." Halima froze. The world around her seemed to blur. The crowd gathering, the sound of the sirens, the gasping of onlookers, all of it faded into silence. Only Amanda's voice echoed in her ears. "You have no idea what you've started." Raymond stepped in front of Halima, protecting her with his body as Amanda staggered toward them. Blood trickled down Amanda's forehead, mixing with her makeup and anger. "You think this is a fairy tale?" she hissed, her voice shaky and wild. "You think you can just walk into his life and erase everything?" "Enough, Amanda," Raymond said firmly, his hands slightly raised. "You're hurt. Let's get you to the hospital." Amanda laughed bitterly. "Don't play the hero. I came to warn you, Raymond. The board is angry. They think you've lost your mind. You disappeared from the company to play. With her?" Halima felt like she couldn't breathe. She wanted to run, to hide. "She didn't ask for all of this." Amanda pointed at her again. "She's your weakness, and you're about to lose everything because of her." Raymond's jaw tightened. "Then let me lose it. If love is a weakness, then maybe I was too strong for too long." Amanda's face twisted with disbelief. "You'll regret this." Then she turned, holding her bleeding side, and disappeared into the crowd just as the ambulance pulled in. That night, Raymond sat with Halima on the rooftop of a quiet building near his private apartment, the first real quiet they'd had in days. The stars above them twinkled gently, like they were eavesdropping on their conversation. Raymond looked tired. He had changed back into his usual simple clothes, plain t-shirt, jeans, sandals, no fancy watches, no sleek suits, just him. "I never meant for you to be dragged into my world like that," he said quietly. Halima wrapped her arms around her knees and rested her chin on them. "I don't even know what your world is, Raymond. One moment I'm working the cash register. Next I'm standing between billionaires and boardrooms and crashing cars." He gave a sad chuckle. "I thought I could run away from that world, disguise myself, be invisible. But I forgot one thing." "What's that?" He looked at her. "Even in hiding, the truth always finds its way out." They sat in silence for a while. Finally, Halima asked, "So what happens now?" Raymond sighed. "The company is preparing for to push me out, replace me as CEO. They said I've become unreliable." "And will they succeed?" she asked. "I don't know," he replied honestly. "I gave up fighting when I found peace with you." She turned to him. "But maybe this is not the time to stop fighting. Maybe now you have something worth fighting for." He looked at her, truly looked at her. "Do you really believe that?" She nodded slowly. "I do." The next morning, Raymond returned to the boardroom. All 12 directors sat in stiff suits, eyes cold, voices colder. Amanda was there too, sitting proudly beside the acting chairman. "We are disappointed," the chairman began, "that a man with your brilliance could throw it all away for a disguise." Raymond stood tall. No papers, no notes. Just him and his truth. "I didn't throw it away," he said calmly. "I found something more valuable than all the deals and profits in this building. I found humanity." A few board members exchanged glances. Raymond continued, "You asked me to grow this company with heart, but when I used my heart, you called it weakness. Let me ask you, how many of you have stepped into the shoes of our lowest workers? Do you know how our cleaners live? Our cashiers? Our drivers?" Silence. Raymond took a breath. "I've been down there. I've cleaned their floors, I've heard their dreams, and I've learned something you'll never understand from behind this glass. True loyalty is earned through compassion, not power. Amanda scoffed, but no one laughed with her. Then Raymond added, "You can take the title from me, but you can't take my voice or my heart." He walked out of the room. Back at the supermarket, Halima waited anxiously. She had refused to go online, avoided the news, and tried to keep her mind busy. But her heart pounded every time someone walked in, every time the doorbell rang. Then finally, she saw him. Raymond walked in, still dressed in plain clothes, holding 2 fresh oranges. "For us," he said, smiling. Halima rushed to him. "What happened? Did they remove you?" He grinned. "They voted. It was close, but I'm still CEO." Halima gasped and hugged him tightly. "I told them," he said, "I'd only stay on one condition." "What condition?" "That the company begins a project to build housing for our low-income staff and increase cleaner salaries." Her mouth dropped open. "You did that for them?" "For us," he corrected, "because you showed me what matters most." Halima held him close. For the first time, she didn't care about the stares or the whispers. She was in the arms of a man who had everything, but chose her. Just as they smiled and leaned into each other, Raymond's phone rang. He checked the screen and frowned. "What is it?" Halima asked. He looked up, eyes troubled. "It's my father." "Your father?" she echoed. Raymond nodded slowly. "I haven't spoken to him in years. He told me never to marry below my class. He said it would bring shame." The phone rang again. This time, Halima grabbed his hand. "Pick it," he answered. "Hello?" There was silence. Then a deep voice said, "She reminds me of your mother. If you let her go, you'll regret it forever." Raymond blinked. "What did you say?" But the line cut. He stared at the phone, confused and shaken. What did he mean by that? Halima asked softly. Raymond's eyes narrowed. "I don't know, but I think there's more to my mother's story than I was ever told." He looked at Halima with new fire in his eyes. "I think my father has a secret." Raymond could not sleep that night. His father's voice echoed in his mind over and over. "She reminds me of your mother. If you let her go, you'll regret it forever." It wasn't just the words, it was the tone. Heavy, sad, like a man carrying a memory that still burned. Halima sat beside him on the couch, her hand on his. "Maybe your mother was once like me, a simple woman. Maybe that's why your father sounded scared." Raymond nodded slowly. "He never talks about her, never told me how they met, just that she died when I was little." "Then it's time to find out the truth," Halima whispered. The next morning, Raymond visited his father's estate, something he hadn't done in almost 3 years. The house was quiet, too quiet. He knocked once. The gate opened before he could knock again. A familiar elderly voice greeted him. "Master Raymond, the old man is in the garden." It was Mr. Jide, the family's longtime butler. His face had aged, but his eyes were still sharp. As Raymond walked through the tall hedges, his heart pounded. He hadn't spoken to his father in so long. The last time they saw each other, they shouted. His father said, "You are too emotional to lead this empire." But today, his father was sitting calmly on a wooden chair, feeding birds. He didn't even turn around. "I was wondering when you'd come," the old man said. Raymond took a deep breath. "You called me. You told me she reminds you of Mum." His father tossed another seed. "She does." "Why?" Still, the old man didn't look at him. "Because your mother was a market woman. I met her when I had nothing. She sold vegetables under the bridge in Surulere." Raymond's mouth dropped open. "She wasn't rich." The old man chuckled. "Far from it. She was poor, loud, stubborn, but she had the kindest heart." "Then why didn't you ever tell me?" Raymond asked. "Because I failed her," the old man said, his voice cracking. "When I became rich, the world mocked her. The business partners, the socialites, the newspapers, they called her names, said she was dragging me down." Raymond felt a sting in his chest. "I became ashamed," his father whispered, "and one day I made her leave." Raymond couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You sent her away?" His father finally turned around. Tears filled his eyes. "She was already sick, but I didn't know. She died alone, and I couldn't even attend her funeral properly because of the press. Since then, I've told myself, never again should love blind a man from his future." Raymond stood frozen. The pain in his father's face was real. "I looked at Halima," his father continued, "and I saw your mother's eyes, her gentleness, her strength, and I knew I had to let you make your own choice." Raymond slowly sat down beside him. I'm not afraid, he said softly. I'd rather be poor with Halima than rich and empty. His father smiled faintly. Then don't lose her, because if you do, you'll carry the same guilt I've carried for 30 years. Meanwhile, back at the estate where Raymond lived, Halima stepped out to buy food from a nearby market. She wore her simple gown, slippers, and carried her brown purse, the same one she had since university. Even though she was now staying in a house that had golden sinks and marble walls, she still acted like the same girl who lived in a one-room apartment in Mushin. As she walked past the crowd at the junction, a young man wearing a cap, pulled low, began following her. She didn't notice at first, but every turn she made, he made it too. She stopped at a fruit seller's table. The man stopped across the road, pretending to scroll his phone. Her heartbeat quickened. She paid quickly and began walking faster. He followed. Then she crossed the street. He crossed too. Now Halima knew something was wrong. She picked up speed and turned into a narrow path beside an old shop. Suddenly, a black car blocked the end of the path, and two men stepped out. One of them held up his hand. We don't want to hurt you. Just come with us. Halima's breath caught in her throat. She turned to run, but the man with the cap was already behind her. They grabbed her arms. Let me go, she screamed, struggling with all her strength. Nobody will hear you, one of them said. We just want to talk. Talk about what? Then the man pulled out a folded paper from his pocket. On it was a blurry photo of her and Raymond hugging outside the supermarket. This is the problem, he said. You're ruining everything. Halima froze. Who sent you? She asked. The man leaned closer. Someone with enough money to bury this whole love story. Suddenly, shouts rang out. A group of local boys from the junction had followed the noise. 5 of them jumped into the alley, led by a tall guy holding a plank. Leave her alone, or we'll break all your teeth. The men panicked and ran toward the car, speeding off before they could be caught. Halima dropped to her knees, shaken. The boys helped her up. One of them asked, Are you all right, Auntie? She nodded slowly. Thank you. Thank you so much. But deep inside, fear had entered her heart. Someone was trying to tear them apart. Someone powerful. And she had no idea who or how far they were willing to go. For days after the attack, Halima couldn't sleep well. She kept checking over her shoulder. Every loud knock made her heart jump. Every unknown number on her phone made her hesitate. But what worried her the most was not the attack. It was the message the man gave her before running off. You're ruining everything. Who? Why? She hadn't told Raymond yet. She didn't want to scare him. He had been acting more peaceful lately, and they had even started dreaming together, talking about owning a small restaurant or even running a foundation for poor children. She didn't want to ruin the happiness, but secrets have a way of forcing themselves out. Raymond noticed it one morning when she was brushing her hair. There was a small bruise on her wrist. He rushed to her side. What happened here? Halima paused. It's nothing serious. Did you fall? No, I was followed in the market. Raymond's face changed. Followed? By who? 2 men. They tried to grab me, but the boys at the junction saved me. His hands clenched. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to cause more trouble. You're already going through so much. No, Halima, you don't understand, he said, his voice shaking. This is more serious than I thought. He stood up, grabbed his phone, and made a call. Put security at every entrance and find out who sent those men. I want names. Fast. Halima had never seen him like that, so full of fear and fire at once. Then he turned to her. I think someone in my father's company is behind this. I don't know who yet, but they know about us, and they don't like it. Why? Raymond walked to the window. You know the truth, Halima. I'm not just any man sweeping floors. My family's company is worth billions. If I marry a girl like you, someone without wealth, without status, it scares them. Halima looked down. So I'm a threat. No, he said, walking over to her. You're my heart, and they're afraid of love. That evening, while Raymond was still making calls, Halima went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Her hands shook as she cut the vegetables. Then she heard a knock. It was a soft, polite knock, not like the others. She opened the door slowly and found a young woman standing there. Pretty, well-dressed, with a confident smile that didn't reach her eyes. Good evening, the woman said. You must be Halima. Yes. How can I help you? I'm Amaka, Raymond's childhood friend. We went to school together. Halima's body tensed. I didn't know he had many childhood friends, she replied. Oh, he had plenty. But I'm different, Amaka said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I was also supposed to be his fiancée. Halima's breath caught. Excuse me? Oh, you didn't know? His father and mine already planned it. Years ago. We were the perfect match. 2 strong families, 2 powerful names, until you showed up. Halima stood quietly, her heart racing. I just wanted to meet the woman who broke our deal, Amaka said, and to tell you kindly, leave, while you still can. I'm not going anywhere, Halima replied firmly. Amaka's eyes narrowed. You don't belong in his world. Maybe not, but I belong in his heart. Amaka smiled coldly. We'll see how long that lasts. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply on the tiles. Later that night, Halima told Raymond everything. About Amaka, about her threat, about the hidden deal between both families. Raymond didn't even flinch. I knew she'd try something, he said. She's always believed money equals control. But I already told my father I'd rather wash toilets in peace than marry someone without love. Halima held him tightly. I'm scared, Raymond. So am I, he whispered, but we'll face it together. He leaned in and kissed her forehead. We've come too far to give up now. But just as things started to feel peaceful again, the next morning, Raymond woke up to a loud bang on the front door. Bam! 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 He rushed downstairs. When he opened the door, 3 police officers were standing there. Mr. Raymond Obi? Yes. You're under arrest for fraud and impersonation. What? You have the right to remain silent. Before he could argue, they handcuffed him. Halima came running down, screaming, Wait! What's going on? This is a mistake! Raymond shouted as they pushed him into the police van. Call my lawyer. Don't trust anyone. And Halima, stay safe. The car drove off into the morning fog. Halima stood frozen, her body shaking. She looked around, and in the distance, parked by a black SUV, Amaka stood smiling, with her arms crossed. Halima couldn't sleep. The sound of the police siren still rang in her ears. Raymond was gone, taken, accused of fraud and impersonation. And Amaka, that wicked smile on her face, it told Halima everything she needed to know. This wasn't a mistake. It was a trap. The next morning, Halima dressed early and headed to the company where Raymond worked, or used to work as a cleaner. She asked to see the manager. They laughed at her. You think you can just walk in here and demand answers? The secretary said, rolling her eyes. But Halima didn't back down. If you don't let me in, I'll sit here until someone listens. I'm not leaving without the truth. Her voice was loud enough to catch the attention of an old man walking past. He had gray hair and a quiet dignity. He stopped. You are Halima? He asked. Yes. I'm Raymond's father. Halima's eyes widened. You? He nodded. Come with me. Inside his office, the man sat quietly looking at her. My son told me about you, he said. At first, I didn't believe him. I thought you were another gold digger, pretending to care so he'd fall for you. Halima swallowed hard. But when I saw how you stood at the gate, defending him to the security men, how you cooked for him when he had nothing, how you protected him after that attack, I knew you were different. Tears gathered in her eyes. Then why was he arrested? Because Amaka got greedy, he said. She told the police Raymond was using a fake identity to trick you and ruin her father's business deal. She even bribed a few officers, but she didn't know I was watching. He handed Halima a flash drive. This has everything. The real fraud is her. And today, you're going to help me set my son free. Halima and Raymond's father walked straight into the police headquarters later that afternoon. The officer in charge laughed at first until the elder Obi played the videos on the flash drive. Amaka bribing officers. Amaka forging pink papers. Amaka threatening Raymond. The room went silent. I suggest you make the right call, Raymond's father said calmly, unless you want the media here by morning. An hour later, Raymond was free. Halima rushed to him, crying into his chest as he held her tight. I knew you'd come, he whispered. I would have searched the whole world, she replied. 2 weeks later, Raymond stood before a large crowd. The company had arranged a huge event. Cameras were everywhere. He stepped up to the podium wearing a fine suit, but beside him stood Halima, wearing a simple dress and a humble smile. I used to be a cleaner, he began. Not because I had no money, but because I had no peace. I needed to find someone who loved me for who I was, not what I had. He looked at Halima, and I found her sweeping floors, smiling through pain, giving me food when she barely had enough for herself. The crowd was silent. My name is Raymond Obi, son of Emmanuel Obi, and today I want the world to know this woman beside me, she's my heart, my future, and the reason I finally believe in true love. People began to cheer. Reporters clapped. Even his father had tears in his eyes. Raymond turned to Halima. I've waited too long for this. He dropped to one knee, pulled out a small velvet box. Halima, will you marry me? Halima covered her mouth, shaking with joy. Yes! Yes, Raymond! The crowd exploded with cheers. A few months later, their wedding shook the city. It was simple, beautiful, filled with street children Raymond once helped and neighbors who stood by them. Even the company staff who once ignored him danced like family. And Amaka, she was last seen trying to flee the country, but karma, like love, always finds its way. As Raymond and Halima stood under the stars that night, he whispered, "You were the best thing I ever found when I was lost." She smiled, holding his hand tightly. And you were the miracle I never saw coming.